Today is Wednesday, the 13th of May, 2026, and my name is Francisco Gaffney, and this is my live stream that I'm doing every day, Monday to Friday, and it's all about governance, risk, compliance, and advisory boards. And today we are just starting with the model again because we are going through the advisory board operating system. And just a quick recap: on Monday we talked about scaling. Yesterday we spoke about predictability, and I'm moving the model, by the way. So here's scaling. Yesterday we spoke about predictability, and today we are going to talk about systems, particularly about the performances, the governance, risk, and compliance, and the assets. But more specifically, I'm going to focus in the controls and resilience. And there is a reason for that, and I'm going to develop all these things. So probably you're familiar with the term resilience, what it means for a company, etc., etc. So, but this is where the boards often get board. Not only boards, but actually, if you don't have a non-executive directors board or a board, your team could be the board, right? Or your spouse could be the board. So he's a people that you have these business conversations, or yourself as a founder too. And this is where often the things get tricky. The thing with resilience is people think it's a technical issue, or is IT will handle it, or finance will handle it, or compliance will handle it, or the risk report will handle it. But when the real incident lands, the we start to learn which is the truth about all these things. Resilience actually is a leadership issue. And you will say, well, how I come? Well, I'm going to develop this today and you will understand why. So the Business Development Bank of Canada also provided a study that found the advisory board had a positive impact on risk management with the company's survival and profitability. That matters because resilience is not separate from the value, actually protects the value of your organization. So let's start to identify what exactly are we going to talk today. So what exactly is resilience in business? Basically how you handle, or actually in your business, what is resilience? And this is how you handle your disruptions, the uncertainties, and the ambiguities, right? It's not only about the future, it's about the things, how you controls that you put in place to handle these things in the case that happened. So there are four core components. Number one is a financial stability. Number two is sustainable growth. Number three is operation response to unpredictability. And the latest one is cybersecurity. Probably the most unprepared is cybersecurity because actually still evolving. Look what is happening with AI now. It's everything all over the place, and you start to provide a lot of information that actually you don't know where it's going to bounce back against you. And this is a case that happened in court, I think it was in January this year, where a CEO on a merger and acquisition process was advised by accountants and lawyers, or their advising team said, we shouldn't do this. And he went to not even a paid version of a GPT. He went to an open source AI and challenged himself and in his strategy, and develop a full plan how to take over the company, even against the good advice of the lawyers and accountants. He performed that strategy, and guess what? They found out in the open source public records what he've done, right? Obviously, went to court. This means the case was very badly against him and his company and had a big problem. So cybersecurity now with AI is very good if you want to understand or challenge your thinking, if you may. But be careful where you do it, because actually you have a massive security gap there. So that's one example. And this is where advisory boards, particularly the model that you have in front of you, really matters, because I assembled an international advisory board around the resilience milestones. It could be financial, sustainable operations, cybersecurity. So that might include governance, obviously cybersecurity, operational risk, data, third-party risk, as I just mentioned, recovery planning, and crisis communications. So you get the capabilities without hiring one permanent executive too early, or to avoid a big consulting overhead. And also, the big advantage is that the advisory members are reviewed every 6 months. So the board's expertise change as the risk changes. So you see, resilience is not just only about the de-risking or having a plan or a policy about things. Also is who and how they are going to do the things, which is a team that's going to help you to get there without hiring a full team or dumping or make a brain dump on the AI and then having a bad consequences for you and your organization. So let's take a look at three problems with this. The first problem is evidence. In terms of resilience, the Financial Conduct Authority says that firms should continue to review and evolve the operational resilience approach, right? So you have to, or what it means that the resilience needs evidence, not reassurance, right? So you can have a policy, but that policy, if it doesn't have a good triage, how is the policy is going to play in the case of a circumstance, could be financial, operational, cybersecurity, then you have a problem there because you cannot evidence that actually that policy is executable in the real world, right? The second problem is the threat speeds. And I'm going to bring some from the National Cybersecurity Center statistics that says that in 2025, they had 204 national significant cyber attacks. But guess what? In 2024, they have only 89 cyber attacks reported. So the risk of environments is moving faster than many board packs can help up with, meaning that, again, you might have a good policy in place, but doesn't mean that you have the ways to handle these cyber attacks. So, for example, I'm going to cyber because it's very easy to understand, right? So this back to the problem number one. So you need the evidence that actually you have those reviews and the operation and how I call this is the processes that will comply with these issues. And the third problem is control failures, because not only you have the policies, you have the evidence, so also who is controlling this and how they are controlling this. And this is coming from the Information Commissioner's Office, that they find a very well-known software company, Advanced Computer, with £3 million because security failing to put personal information of almost 80,000 people, and they put it at risk. So that is not an IT footnote. This is a board trust issue now. The company have been fined because 80,000 people information had been exposed, right? So they have the policy, they have the processes, but they couldn't operationally execute that and expose the data of 80,000 people. Now, so in other words, imagine the resilience is the fire door of the business. If really matters, if they opens properly or close the gates properly when the smoke starts, right? Or the sprinkles start to trigger and cut the fire earlier when the most smoke starts or certain temperature reach out to the point where you say, okay, we need to put these processes in place to make sure the company survives these challenges. So when you say that we are comfortable with resilience, the question or the natural question would be, what evidence would make that statement safe, right? So you have to make evidence, and not only the evidence, you have to provide evidence, you also have to provide which are the mechanisms to trigger those evidence and these policies. So why these things are happening and where the boards or the founders or the companies get stuck, right? So you get stuck because you confuse policy with proof. And this is the first thing that I mentioned already: proof, policies, and evidence and mechanisms. So policy says what should happen, but a tested system shows what will happen under pressure, right? So if you're not testing your system, your policies, and provide evidence of that, then probably you have a very nice policy pack, but actually what will happen in reality is not exactly what you planned, right? So you don't have the capacity to respond to things. And this is a key word. Respond is different than react. Many companies literally react to situations or circumstances rather than respond, right? So The second thing that the companies get stuck is because the third party risk is hidden inside the normal operation, and this is a very, very, very risky one. So, for example, cyber response and recovery practices in 2025 were something actually were increasing, as I mentioned, because the recovery capability now sits on the heart of the operation, right? So you have to have the response and recovery practices right away. This is for many large organizations, this is not something that is strange for them. I say, well, we have that. We have our data recovery disaster processes and systems, redundancies in software or databases, or systems that trigger one other system when one is failing, etc., etc. This is when you have a large organization in terms of IT and on software and hardware. But what will happen if an invoice is due for more than 90 days or more than 120 days? So how your company is, what is the impact of the cash flow of your organization? So resilience is not only IT, it's not only software, it's not only hardware. It's about cash flow, it's about operation. What happens if key people are leaving in the organization, which is a succession plan? So you see, it's not only the cyber attacks. So say, oh, we are hacked, our servers are hacked, or our web page is down because somebody hacked it. Have nothing to do with that. Sorry, it's not that have nothing to do with that. It's a lot of other things that you have to be considering in terms of resilience. And the third thing that you get stuck is because the lack of the right challenges. And what I mean with this is that the right challenge is actually these questions I'm asking right now. And where you get these questions, or if you don't have, probably you don't have the time to do that by your own, or your executive team is too busy just doing the thing that they have to do every day. And everybody has 24/7. But you can spare a couple of hours a month to have a meeting with your advisory board and receive these questions and start to plan around these things and say, okay, so this is the right challenge. So how we are resilient in terms of finances, in terms of operations, in terms of growing, in terms of cyber, like the four things that I mentioned earlier. So then you can start to see that actually you need to put things in place or review the things I already have in place and test them and how you're going to test them. So the question is, what will happen or what will you see if you review resilience like your revenue or your capital or your strategies, right? So resilience is something else that you have to review recurrently. I'm not saying every single month, but every quarter or every 6 months, etc., etc. So if you have not done this so far, um, or before you never done this before, here are 3 practical moves that what an advisory board does at this stage, right? So let's go practical. The first thing is to build an important service map, right? So what is important in your services? Name the services that matter most to customers, to the cash flow, to regulators, to your reputation, and then map who owns those responsibilities, who is accountable for that. So it's not dependencies and tolerance disruptions. And here's a very important 3 things. Many people doesn't want to name accountability and ownership because that implies responsibilities in the place where they should lay. So this is not up to discussion. If you are responsible for this, you are responsible for this. So it's trying to ease that responsibility or ease that responsibility, diluting it, actually defeat the purpose of the resilience. So it's a harsh call, but you have to do it. And also which are dependencies on that responsibilities and who is and how tolerant people are or to the disruption. And the disruption could be that it's these people that is accountable for the things that they have to do. Also, they say, well, I don't feel that accountability is my place. So that is already a disruption. So you have to look into all these things, how they play together. The second thing I would suggest is test the weak joints. And what I mean here is the advisory board should challenge identity controls, backup quality, third-party concentrations, escalation routes, right? So recovery time and communications, all these things actually where the things are passing from one place to another. So are they in the right workflow, on the right path or the communication path? And the third thing to consider is turn resilience into a board rhythm, into something actually is recurrent, a sequence. It's something actually you can review again and again and again. It's boring, it's not fun, but you can make it a part of the processes where you say, okay, we have to do this. Let's, like Brian Tracy say, let's eat this frog first, and then we can go and do the fun things. So the advisory board here should bring the outside view, from the outside in. What are the press testing things? What are the regulation watching? What will fail first if pressure hits tomorrow, right? So all these things have a reason, a capacity to a company to be more resilient. And remember, resilience is not only IT issues, software and hardware, also is your operations, is your capacity to growth, and your financial strength when you're facing disruptions or ambiguities or uncertainties. So if you are a non-executive director or an executive part of the executive team or the founder, and you want to understand better how an international advisory board can strengthen your controls, your resilience, and your evidences and your test, let's have a chat. And in 30 minutes, we're going to find out where, mostly because I want to understand where you're coming from, where you are today, what you want to achieve, what is your milestone, where you want to get, and how an international advisory board can help you to get there. So let's pause here for today and reconvene tomorrow, because tomorrow I will move from systems or resilience to the edge. What is your innovation, your transformation, your relevance to the next 2 or 3 years in the market? And because a company that protects what it has but cannot reinvent itself still fails, or fall behind what is the next thing in the world.